got the bedding and I stretch before I wash my face. To survive, about to take him to another place. And she said I'm Superman to a lowest lane. Side again, no wise enough, then ain't to clear the way. You gotta go, but to achieve it, you gon' need some faith.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Off the Bench. It's your boys, Jorge Roland, joined by our brand new UFC correspondent, Matt. Welcome to the show for the first time ever.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to be here.
We got UFC 255 to talk about. That's why Matt is here. We're going to preview it. Roll, Matt, do your thing. You know MMA isn't my forte, so go ahead.
Before we start into any type of talking, I'd just like to say, George, you know more than you give yourself credit.
I mean, it's all thanks to my knowledge. Whenever I go see a UFC fight, I always make sure I'm wearing my diplomacy clothing shirts. And my
Hello.
As always, this podcast is sponsored by Diplomacy Clothing. Negotiate with style. It's pay me season. We got new shirts. Go to their Instagram page. Make your orders. They are selling out fast. Make sure you get yours because they are in limited quantity. Go ahead, Ro.
All right. What we got today was breaking news out of the UFC camp is we got 255, what we believe to be the co-main event, and the thing is, Matt, they never announced who's co-main event and who's the main event. But if I was left to assume, Valentina is the main event.
You see, the reason I don't think it's going to be the main event is because Chael Sonnen's talked about this. They usually, the way they have it set up is the higher weight and the more draw of the fight is going to be the main event. So that's why I think Garbrandt versus
Garbrandt.
Yeah, okay. He's gonna be. That's why I think he's gonna be main event, just because of the name.
Yeah, no, completely fair, and if that's the main event, regardless, two great fights to be announced. If you guys have not been caught up on anything that's going on, these guys are living underneath a bubble. Figueroa will be defending that nice new strap he just won against a guy who wasn't in the division about a week ago.
Wasn't a day ago. He was, at least to public knowledge.
This all started with Cody Garbrandt saying, "Hey, I'll go down there and fight the guy. I'll take the strap from him if you guys don't want nobody else to fight from him." And I believe Dana looked at it like, let's look at the division. He took one quick look at the division and said, "What's the chance that Henry come back?" His people told him, "Nah, he ain't coming back to this division
unless it's a lot of money."
And then he looked back at the list. Realized he didn't see Demetrius Johnson name there anymore. Then looked back and said, "What's the chance that we can get him back from one?" They said the chances aren't good.
Very low.
So then he looked, then that's closest to the division. So then he said, "Well, I think Cody Garbrandt, hey, he wants to fight the guy, why not?" So
exactly.
I think that's kind of how this fight got done. I think Cody's the one who spoke up. No one else spoke up. And it was kind of like one of those things that, all right, it makes sense. Why not book it?
The only name that people can think of when they go into flyweight is Joseph Benavidez. He's number one ranked.
Watched him get his ass whooped.
Listen. He's the only name that anybody knows in that division, though.
Oh, that's true.
Because of the fights with DJ. Yeah. I guarantee you more people know about him than the current champion. I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
His fights with DJ were legendary. He lost all of them, but he was still a good fighter. You know what I mean? Like he held his own. He held his own in there with arguably, in my opinion, one of the GOATs of the UFC.
Yes, and for off cameras, guys, me and Matt have made our top 25 list in MMA, and I can confirm he did have Demetrius Johnson, as did I, pretty high up there on that list.
Well, you can't not have him up there. He has the record of most UFC title defenses. Nobody talks about him though, because he's not. He had one of the best highlight reel submissions ever in the UFC. He is record holder for most title defenses over Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo held that belt for what, better part of a decade?
Until
he lost to Conor McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
He held it for the better part of a decade. But DJ was obviously underloved by Dana White. They put him on a fight night. They put his title defense on a fight night.
Did.
Who does that? Who does that?
Now, I got a question for both Matt and George. Mm-hmm. George, feel free to speak up. I know, like I said, you know more than you give yourself credit.
Me and Roland aren't the only ones here.
You can tell. It's all good. It's all good.
Do you guys believe that if Figueiredo does not gain, say he goes out there and beats Garbrandt, okay, now let's just say that happens. We're not going to get into predictions right now. Let's say hypothetically that happens. If he goes out there, he beats Garbrandt, and he goes out there and let's say defends the belt 5, 6 several times. Doesn't look like he's going to be ever challenged to lose the belt. But, hypothetically speaking, and he still gains no popularity. Nobody cares for the guy. The division is in shambles, and you're just like, I could care less about this. Do you think there's a chance that they close the division?
I want to. It's a relatively new division. It wasn't. Demetrius Johnson was the first champion in that division. It is a relatively new division, and I could see because there's no hammers down there. There's nobody you know the names of. There's nobody you know the names of. As soon as DJ left and went to 1, the division crumbled, in my opinion. Bantamweight used to be in the same boat, but he brought in new blood. People dropped down. People went up, and it got better. Sadly, there's no one below 125, and it's super hard to cut to 125. So there's going to be no new blood in that division. Everybody leaves that division eventually. So I could see it closing down. That being said, there are a lot of young people that are coming up that who could potentially go to 125. It's not that hard for bantamweight to cut to 125.
No.
Regardless.
Yeah, not at all.
I mean, TJ had a really hard time cutting to 125, but then again, TJ walks around at what? I think he said 170.
Yeah, and he's a big bantam. Like he's probably carrying around 160, 160.
I can see it. But he had a hard time cutting. Obviously, it's a hard cut for anybody. I think
if you don't mind, Matt, that's why I'm kind of curious to wonder what Garbrandt is walking around.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was going to get to. How do you think he's going to handle that cut? I don't think he's going to handle it that well.
I mean, George, I don't know if you read the comments, but he when the news first came out, and he said his words, I can make 125 easy. So my thought process when he said that was he has to be walking around at like 140.
Has to be. You can't go around
to make it easy
and get down to 125.
But listen, people make that statement all the time. Mm-hmm. I know that from wrestling. For sure. From wrestling, I've heard people say, "Oh, I can get to 120. I can get to 126." I've heard those before. Where do they stay at the whole season? 152, 145.
Yeah,
they stay up there the whole season. They can't cut that weight. Yeah. Most people when they're wrestling or when they're fighting, they're cutting mostly water weight. They cut through the week for that weekend, and then they go immediately 8 pounds back up. I did it. I cut 45 pounds before the season started to get down to 160, but I would still fluctuate in weight. Like I'd cut down to 160 for a weekend and go back up to 170 for that week. And then in the last 3 days before the next tournament, I was back down to 160. And most of that was done the day before or the day of. I cut 4 or 5 pounds day of if I needed to.
And I know they mentioned relevant to what you just spoke about, Jorge Masvidal spoke on that when he was talking to Chael. Like, hey, Chael, this as a former fighter, majority of this is water weight. He said for him to cut weight, because a lot of people made the argument, when he took the fight for short notice, Kamaru was, man, we see Masvidal a week ago. He's sitting about 180, 185. That was what everyone was saying before he took the fight with him. And then, in 6 days, he made weight. So, so if he was sitting there 15 pounds overweight, the guy.
It's not that hard to cut. It really isn't. Yeah. Put on a sauna suit, get on an Aerodyne, pump it out, do some wrestling, do some jiu-jitsu, do some light bag work. It's easy to get that weight off. Go ahead.
George, real quick.
Yeah.
With this question, I'm coming to you, man.
All right.
For a power hitter like Garbrandt, let's assume he's cutting 15 pounds to get to the 125 max. He cuts down to 125. He's a power hitter. He's not known to be much else. He's not really much of a grappler. He's more of a boxer. He's going to stand in there. He's going to shake shots. You're gonna look to put you out. Do you think now, George? Do you think power will be? I don't want to say taken away because he'll still have powerful hands for sure. But how much do you think this cut's gonna hurt his chances at being the more dominant fighter in this fight?
It's definitely gonna hurt him. I think. I mean, it's not the typical way. Yeah, you can say I can cut down there, but you're not used to fighting at that weight. I don't think. I don't think he's ever fought at that weight.
No.
So I think it'll definitely be a disadvantage for him. But back to your original question about the division closing down. If Figueiredo comes up victorious, I don't think that this would have it. Or if he wins or loses, I think this will improve the division, not just get it set. Well, maybe we should close it down because now you're on the national stage. You're in the main event of UFC. You're putting the division on the spotlight. You're gonna have to show out, and you're gonna have to show the world this is what this division is about. Look at us, pay attention to us. We are here, and we're here to stay. So that's my thoughts on the division going out. But I think for Garbrandt, it's definitely going to be a disadvantage. Just cutting down to that weight is difficult enough, but now having to fight at that weight is a whole nother beast.
Yeah, I agree completely. Matt, what's your take on what's Garbrandt's power going to look like at 125?
So I can speak from experience from cutting a lot of weight. When you cut weight, the thing you have to do immediately after you make weight is try to get back to a healthy weight for you. If he is successful in doing that and he gets enough weight, he gets enough hydration, I can see him keeping at least 75% of that power. Okay. But if he doesn't do it the correct way, he's going to suffer. He's really going to suffer. He's going to lose at least half his power.
Now, when you say 75%, we're talking about Figueiredo, who is probably the strongest natural flyweight. I say natural because Cody's probably the hardest, and probably going to be a harder hitter, but he's not a natural flyweight. Mm-hmm. Figueiredo is a natural flyweight, and he's by far the heaviest hitter in the division. Now, when you say 75%,
9 KOs?
Yes. I mean, he's putting people down, Mm-hmm. Now, when you say 75%, do you think 75% is going to be enough to put Figueiredo out?
Anybody can get hit with any shot and get knocked out.
That's true.
That can happen at any time.
That's true.
That's very true. But
I know there's a but.
But I could definitely see Figueiredo's speed being holding up his ability to compete with Cody's 75% power. Okay. I can see him staying there. I can see him being able to hang in there and just overwhelm him with shots. Now Cody could get up. He's done it before. He did it. Who was his last fight? Who was Cody's last fight? Who was that against? Rafael Santos. Yeah. Rafael. It was against Santos. He got. I'm not going to say that was a lucky shot, but he got.
It was clean. It was clean.
Yeah. He got off a shot. He got off a shot and he knocked him out. If Cody can do that, I think he will win. If he can pick his shots, if he can make them count, he can win. But when Figueiredo comes in with that speed and overwhelms him and swarms him, that's when he's going to have a problem. Because when Cody tries to go in and go ham, go fast, and try to hit hard, you've seen it. He gets slept.
Yeah.
He gets slept.
Oh, yeah.
To him,
yeah. When he fights out of anger, when he fights out of anger, he's a far less fighter. And I've been on record. I think I talked to you about it, Matt. I'm a believer he could have beat TJ if he didn't let his anger get the best of him. Because in the first round, he was whooping TJ's ass.
If he didn't let all that Team Alpha Male stuff get to his head, and he could have won that fight because he's a good boxer.
Oh, and that's why I was just about to dive into. I'm like, if he goes in there with the mentality, I'm gonna have the reach advantage. I'm gonna be naturally the stronger guy. Mm-hmm. I sit back and use my boxing, and let Figueiredo come to him. And he
exactly. Figueiredo has to get on the inside.
Yeah, and you catch him with
a fight if he doesn't.
A couple of clean, counter shots. He could possibly put Figueiredo down. Mm-hmm. And I personally, I mean, do you guys want to dive into predictions now? You guys want to?
I don't want to talk about it too early. I don't want to talk about it too early because I don't want to.
Okay. That's fair. That's a fair.
Kind of get into it.
I think there's a clear blueprint for both these fighters to win. I think that the blueprint is clear for both fighters. It's who's going to execute. Because this is going to be by far the biggest fight Figueiredo ever had. Like, you can argue he just fought for the world championship. That's the biggest fight he ever had. No. When you face a former world champion who's coming down to your division to take your strap, and he is a harder hitter. You're no longer a superior, striker in the bout. He is.
You're in his house. Is going to be even though you're the champion, you're in his house. He's going to control it. He's going to control it. If he uses his range correctly, he's going to control it.
And that's what if you're Figueiredo's camp, you're preaching now to him. I think we'll see a lot of leg kicks out of Figueiredo. Wear down Cody. Look,
get on the inside, get some body shots.
Stagger that movement. Don't let him,
come out with some weird looks.
You want to keep him as straight and narrow as humanly possible. Because like you said, man, we have seen Cody get put down, and by people I don't think people who hit as hard as Figueiredo is.
Like TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, like so you tell him he's in there with actually a power hitter. Like Figueiredo, if he gets sloppy, it won't take much to clean this clock.
Here's one thing we haven't talked about. Figueiredo has 7 submission wins.
Yep.
We haven't talked about that yet. We have
last
not
win
talked
was a weird naked choke.
Rear naked choke against Joseph Benavidez.
Yeah.
Joseph Benavidez.
The reason why I don't bring that up is because I've seen Cody against decent enough wrestlers and not get submitted. Such a TJ Dillashaw and not get submitted. So I'm not necessarily all that worried. I hear what you're saying, but if I think it's more likely that Cody loses a decision than he does by submission. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know Cody does have a good takedown defense. You have to if you're going to be a good striker. You have to have a good takedown defense.
Yeah. If you're not looking like Justin Gaethje. Now, Justin Gaethje's a wrestler.
Oh, yeah. Justin Gaethje, the two-time owner?
Yeah, no. He's a wrestler, but he doesn't look to take anybody down.
No, because he doesn't like wrestling.
He uses his wrestling to keep the fight standing. Yeah. He don't want to go down there. He's a wrestler who just want to pay.
Yeah, he wants because he's a dirty boxer. He can put you to sleep. Cody Garber can do the exact same thing, but he wasn't a wrestler. He was a boxer. You know what I mean? When you see a lot of boxers move over to MMA or like with Izzy, when you see Izzy come over to MMA, everybody's question was, how's his takedown defense going to be? How's his grappling going to be? He has a great takedown defense percentage. He went up against Yoel Romero, easily one of the best wrestlers, Olympic silver medalist, and did he even get taken down in that fight? I don't think he did. He kept him at range. That was a boring fight, though. I heard that was a boring fight. I didn't watch it, but I know.
I watched it, and I'm trying to remember if he got taken down. If he did, I think he got right back up. He wasn't down there for long.
And if Cody has half of his wrestling that he had in the TJ Dillashaw fight or any other fight that he's had, and he's able to defend those takedowns, I can see him coming out with maybe a decision loss, like you said. If he can keep on his feet, or if he can keep his back to the cage when he's trying to take him down, I could see him losing to only a decision. Because I don't think he's going to get knocked out.
So real quick, guys, another fight on the card that's been announced. Valentina Shevchenko is going to defend her flyweight championship against Jennifer Maia. She was originally supposed to defend it against Joanne Calderwood, but Calderwood decided to accept the fight again in Las Vegas against Maia last weekend. So Maia obviously upset her, Calderwood. So now, how does Valentina go for her 4th title defense?
Do you want to take the lead here, Matt?
Hands. That's all she's got to do. She is a marksman with her strikes. She is a marksman. That's why they call her the Bullet for a reason. She's quick and she's powerful. That's her whole thing. I mean, the only 2 losses I think she has in the UFC are to Amanda Nunes.
Yep.
Or to Amanda Nunes, who is, in my opinion,
the GOAT.
The GOAT, exactly. I guarantee. Listen. Yeah. Me and Roland have had this talk many times. You put her in a cage with a man, she's going to hold her own.
Yep.
100%.
She won't get her ass.
No, she won't. She might not win.
She would hold her own for sure.
She would hold her own. She would get some shots in. That being said, Jennifer Maia is not a slouch. Jennifer Maia is a fantastic fighter. We've seen that time and time again, like against Joanne Calderwood. Now, that being said, through her last 3 fights, she's 2-1. She does have a loss. She had a loss before Joanne Calderwood, I believe, the fight before. So she is human. She's obviously human, just like Valentina Shevchenko is. She's human. She has flaws. If Shevchenko can find those flaws, especially, I think that's going to definitely be, excuse me, in her stand-up. Then again, Maia is a good stand-up fighter. She got 4 knockouts, I believe, 4 knockouts. Yeah. But the way Shevchenko wins is going to definitely be her strikes. She has to stay on her feet and get some of those strikes off.
So, to basically piggyback off of what Matt said, I agree. It's going to be a strike fest. Now, here's the thing that worries me if I'm Jennifer Maia. She has more decision victories than she had finishes. She wins a lot of fights are by decision. Now, granted, they are unanimous decisions. So if there's a way you're going to win by decision, at least going to be unanimous. You know?
Yeah.
The one thing that does worry me is she has 1 loss by knockout, I believe. If memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, 1.
She has 1 loss by knockout. So if you mean to tell me, and I believe that fight was about like at least 8 years ago. I'm granted. I know we're digging back to
it was 2012 Cage Warriors.
There we go. Like, so she has 1 loss on her record to knockout. But if you look at it from Liz Carmouche to Alex Davis to Joanne, who you just speak of, she's never fought a Valentina. Valentina, as Matt politely said it, is by far one of the most powerful women in the world. Like, even if she was to fight the GOAT herself, what's her name? Just on my like that.
Amanda Nunes?
Yeah, there, Amanda Nunes. If she was to go fight Amanda Nunes, like, I don't think she will win. Amanda Nunes is just.
I mean, she's fought her before.
She's fought her before. If you would have told, that. But if you would have told me Valentino gets a couple of clean shots off and makes it at least look interesting, I believe you. Because
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I also need to mention her loss to Amanda Nunes, her last loss, in fact, before she went on her run and won the title, was a split decision. Roland, off the top of your head, how many people can you name have lost by split decision to Amanda Nunes?
To Amanda?
To Amanda.
Ooh.
Now, I'll probably go ahead and probably say she's probably the only one.
I believe so. I think so.
Like, if I had to assume,
I can't think of anyone.
Unless, I mean, if we dig back probably way before her MMA record probably was even really being counted.
Yeah.
Maybe you could find some then, or maybe real early in her MMA career, you could probably find it then, but not recently. I mean, she's putting out some of the best.
And that's when she was a champion. That means one judge thought, hey, Valentina Shevchenko did enough to where she could have won.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said,
crazy
decision. And not like she went out there and got embarrassed. With the whole duration, great fight. UFC, I remember it was on 215, I believe. Great card.
Yeah.
But if I know in her last 3 fights, Valentina has finished, I believe, 2 of the 3? Yeah. Matter of fact, because she won her last fight against Caitlin by TKO. I remember that,
and then she beat Jessica Ai by.
There we go. Yeah. There we go. And that's the other name. And that
Jessica
was last year
too.
Slouch
either. Jessica Ai is a veteran. She's been in the game for a long time.
And before that, didn't she beat Joanna to win the title?
Yeah, she beat Joanna to win it.
I mean, so we're talking about her beating the cream of the crop. You know, she's beating some of the best that the division has to offer.
Now, Joanna hasn't been the same since she lost to Rose the first time. She's still not a slouch. I talked about this with you today, Roland. Every world champion, former or not, is still a problem. They're still a problem.
Yeah, for sure. The only one you probably like, okay, I'm not worried about now, is Anderson Silva. That's just because he's
he's old. He's kind of out of the game.
He's well past that time period.
He's out of the game now.
He's down to the bottom. But even we just see Fabricio Verdum in the last one. Upset, Alexander. Like this is supposed to be Alexander Gustafsson, like start to great, to great.
Exactly, it's his coronation into the heavyweight rankings.
And then Fabricio Verdum said, "I'm a world champion."
I don't think so. I don't think so. I talked about it with you today. We're going to talk about it later, but Sean O'Malley fought Eddie Wineland to get into the rankings. That's by no means an easy fight.
No. And I mean, I feel like the UFC got to get better. Because before what they used to do, they used to feed, like, when Conor first started blowing up, they would feed him fish. He was in there with people who knew he was going to be.
But he was also in with some young up and comer.
No, he was. But those were people who were before they were. And Max Holloway. He beat Max Holloway. Max Holloway that wasn't the Max Holloway we know now. I want people to get that understand.
Not an unpopular opinion, but Max Holloway should have won the Volkanovski fight.
Max Holloway is
still my opinion.
Featherweight champion right now.
He's a featherweight champion in my heart.
You can't change my mind.
Now, that's not saying I don't like. That's not saying I don't like Volkanovski.
No, I do. Me and George got on here before, right after the fight, and said, "I don't know what that ref seen." But Max was whooping his ass,
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like,
but those are the two fights so far announced for UFC 255. Do you guys have any predictions on any other fights that could be announced?
Here's my thing, George. My thing too, man. I believe this card, now obviously it's November, it's a little further out, so we don't know for certain.
Yeah.
Don't be shocked if you see this card go to Fight Island. Don't be shocked. Because it was Joe, I'm putting Valentino on the card, and then they put who did we just speak about in the Colombian in this slot?
Cody.
Figueiredo. Those are two people we would have to assume will have to go fight on Fight Island. I don't think they're going to get a visa to go fight in the States.
No.
Especially is
unless they fight at the Apex Center.
Yeah.
Unless they fight at the Apex Center.
Like the spots that the fights are going to be listed, the reason why I say that is look forward to like a couple other international names coming out and fighting on this card. I just see them putting a good deal amount of, like, if he's willing to fight before him, then maybe we'll see Darren Till on the card. You never know. Like he seems active and wanting to fight again. So I wouldn't be shocked if he can fight here.
Someone we haven't seen in a few months. Well, When was the last time Donald Cerrone fought?
Cowboy?
Yeah, Cowboy. When was the last time he fought? A few months ago, right?
Yeah, it was early in the year though.
Was it Pettis? Did he fight Pettis? Was that his last?
I think that's what his last fight was.
At welterweight, right? Yeah, at welterweight.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Cerrone come back because that man does not like sitting at home on the BM branch. He does not like sitting at home. Even if he loses, he just loves the sport. It's what he is. He
would travel. Yeah, he would travel.
He is MMA.
But here's the problem with Cowboy is he lost 4 straight. Now you can argue he lost 4 straight to Pettis, McGregor, Gaethje, Ferguson. Not 4.
Yes.
Not either, 4 battle. If you're going to be on a 4 fight through the street, let it beat those guys.
Yeah, they're all former world champions.
World champions or
current. Yeah, or are a current interim champion. Like who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win that fight? And listen, I love Donald Cerrone. I love him. One of my absolute favorite fighters. Huh?
Who we have him fighting?
Well, it depends on if he's going to fight at welterweight or lightweight.
I think he's committed to the welterweight right now.
To welterweight, but they still have him ranked in lightweight.
Do they?
Yeah, I think so.
Only reason why I say that is I think I remember a comment from him saying something is easier for him to make welterweight than it is for him to make lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
So
you also have to try to think: is Dana going to give him another ranked guy, or is he going to give him an unranked guy?
I feel like Donald Cerrone. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I feel like he's in that tier of people he's already out of the title contention. You're not talking about him in title fights, but he's kind of like he's where Robbie Lawler was. When Robbie Lawler lost the title. Like if you're a young guy, and you want to beat a name. That's who you go fight.
After him.
That's who you go fight.
No, I'm not. Now that I'm not saying that he is a stepping stone by any means, because he is the type of person who could put anybody out at any time if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I think if they give him somebody ranked in welterweight, it's going to have to be Damian Maia.
That would be a fair fight.
It's going to have to be Damian Maia.
That would be a fair fight.
Now, if we do see that fight, I think Donald Cerrone wins with striking. He has to there because Damian Maia is still a good fighter.
He's an elite submission artist. And
he is an elite submission artist. Yeah.
My fear is that if Cowboy gets down there, he won't get back up. We've seen so many great strikers, even great grapplers, fall to Damian Maia just due to his
like Ben Askren.
Yeah. Like these people, and they just stood no chance. Once he got them down, it was like glue. Like they couldn't get back up.
Yeah.
But that was 252. 255. Are we putting any predictions down, or are we moving on to the next time?
I don't want to put any predictions down because it's too early. We haven't seen any videos coming out of any camps. We haven't seen anything, so I'm just gonna
hold off.
So Matt, are there any up and coming prospects that you want the listeners to keep their eyes on?
Alrighty, here we go. This is my favorite topic. Sugar Sean O'Malley.
Ooh.
Sugar Sean O'Malley is the future of the UFC, and I am not saying that lightly.
Mm-hmm.
This man, this young man,
fans that he's going to be.
Listen, he is the future of the UFC. He is a showman like Conor McGregor was, but he smokes weed and has rainbow hair. That's what he is. He's just a weird fighter. He's one of those once-in-a-decade young guys that you get that comes in and just has a weird style. A lot of question mark kicks. In the words of Nate, was it Nate or Nick that says spinning shit? I think it was Nate. He has a lot of spinning shit. He is what the UFC needs to be. You know what I mean? He needs to be flashy. He's flashy. That's what people like to watch. He's flashy. Just like Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is flashy. Anthony Pettis was the first MMA fighter to be on a Wheaties box. Because he was flashy. There's a reason he's nicknamed Showtime. And once have you heard the story about how people accepted him with the name Sugar?
No,
Roland?
Go ahead and tell the story.
So I don't remember which UFC event it was. It was just after he had gone signed, I think. He was sitting cage side, and he was sitting next to Rashad Evans, who, if anybody knows UFC, Sugar Rashad Evans, one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. He asked Sean O'Malley asked him, "How do you feel about me using the nickname Sugar?" And he's like, "This was after his Dana White Contender Series, where he came back from a few rounds losing and knocked the dude out." Basically, Sugar Rashad Evans was, "If anybody's going to take it, I think you should take it." Can you imagine having one of the greatest fighters to ever grace the UFC being like, "Yeah, go ahead, use my nickname. Go ahead, use my nickname." He is one that I think will be good. Now I'm going to talk about another unknown UFC bantamweight.
Real quick before you move on. Because you mentioned that Sean O'Malley, he's talented, he's great, but he smokes weed. Now we know that Dana White, he's got a bit of an issue with his fighter smoking weed, a la Matt Riddle.
Oh God, I completely forgot that name.
So how do we go from Dana White hating a guy like Matt Riddle, talented as he may be, to loving and putting Sean O'Malley into the main event and pushing him?
Eyes, flash. He brings a lot of luster to the UFC, if I can put it that way. He brings a lot of eyes. Like I said, he's flashy. The dude, you get no greater post-fight interview than when he broke his leg against Andrei Sukumta. I think his first official UFC card he was on. That wasn't a fight night. He broke his leg on a question mark kick, and he won the fight because if anybody doesn't know, at least Sukumta decided to take him down for some reason. Sean O'Malley would have lost the fight if they would have stayed on feet. The ref would have had to stop it. But Joe Rogan comes in and he's laying on the ground interviewing Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley goes, I love the fans. I love to fight. And I fucking love you, Joe Rogan. You don't get a better interaction than that. That's like Derek Lewis, my balls are hot. My balls was hot. My ball was hot. You don't get a better interaction than that. So he brings eyes, and Dana likes that.
Yeah.
Now I did see so Sean O'Malley streams, and I watched his stream a little bit today. Somebody did ask the question. I didn't get to see it get answered, but somebody asked, how far out from the fight do you stop smoking weed? Because that does get brought up on USADA piss tests.
Yeah.
And I as far as I know, he smokes right up until the fight.
Wow.
I've watched some of his embeddeds. He smokes right up to the fight. He's crazy. He's one of those people that it definitely benefits him to smoke. It definitely benefits. But like you said, Dana White doesn't exactly like weed. So we'll have to see as that progresses, as he gets more and more into rankings, up higher into the rankings. We'll see. Go ahead.
If I could jump in here.
Go ahead, buddy.
I compare Sean O'Malley to a person, people you mentioned earlier, who are infamous for wild shit, smoking weed. Smoking weed, partying, and post-fight interviews, You all think back to Nate being like, Conor McGregor, where you at, motherfucker?
Where you at, motherfucker? Playing touch butt with that dude in the park.
You know where the real money fight at? Like, Sean O'Malley is right out that alley. He's a wild man.
He's got the mouth. He's confident.
I like it. I think he could become a bantamweight champion. I think he has the skills to become a bantamweight champion.
And he has a weird body stature.
I will hold on the judgment till, like I told Matt, till I see him fight a top 5 guy. If he's a top 5 guy, I'm all sold. He goes out there and beats like. Give me a top 5 guy off the top of your head.
Bantamweight guy, top 5. Corey Sandhagen.
Nah, I needed more impressive name.
What do you mean? Corey Sandhagen's impressive. Fine, Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, so you should have named Sterling. Now, if he goes up and beats Sterling, you beat a who's who. You beat a who's who. Even if he goes out there and beats a washed up Jose Aldo, hey man, you earned my respect.
Yeah,
he ain't no easy, and that's who I feel like. That's who Cody should be fighting. Not Cody. Sugar should be fighting. I'm tired of him fighting guys that I know he's going to win. If he loses to these guys,
that's true. It it does get boring.
If you're gonna push the guy, push the guy. Let me see him fight those top guys.
Yeah.
Don't let me see him fight a 13 ranked guy. Why do I care about that guy?
Yeah, that's true.
You're only hurting Sean O'Malley's chances at becoming a star by losing to one of these lower.
But I also feel like that's not his decision. Like, he signs the contract.
It's not. If you look at it, Alexander Gustafsson said he fought Fabricio Verdun. Now, granted, they thought Fabricio Verdun was a stepping stone. But Fabricio, I believe, at the time of that fight was ranked 11th.
Well, yeah,
but you wasn't expecting him to win.
It was Alexander Gustafsson's first fight in heavyweight. You can't just put him in the top 5.
Yeah, no, it'll be dangerous for him. Yeah, it'll be irresponsible for Dana to put him in with the top 5 guys.
New weight, new power.
Understand. But if you would have told me he went in there and fought like, let me see, like Alistair Overeem. If he would have out there and fought Reem, I would have been okay with it. I would have been like, all right, But Reem could easily win, but he could just as easily. He's one of those in between guys that
Francis Ngannou.
No, if he would have fought Francis Ngannou,
God, dude, you can't put a guy that's that new to a division up against a Francis Ngannou, a Curtis.
Francis Ngannou was knocking out heavyweights. You tell me he put him in there with Alexander Gustafsson.
Dude, lost his life. I have never seen a soul leave a body like Alistair Overeem. Oh my God, that was a scary knockout.
That actually turns me into my window with you like how I set that up.
No, there
with
you go.
who my star for the future star for the UFC is, and that's what Francis Ngannou. You know, Dana loves himself a big man. He loves himself a heavyweight.
Yeah.
If he like God, he's like this man when it comes to sweaty pole. You know, he loves him. You know,
some of the baddest men on earth.
Francis Ngannou, he looks like he's the type of guy that if you see in the supermarket,
dude, he's only been training.
Look at him, you're like, I don't even want to look this.
I don't want to go down the same aisle.
I'm not breathing his ear.
Exactly, dude. And if you think about it, he's only been training MMA for 7 years.
7 years.
7 years, and he's already a top ranked guy in the UFC at the toughest division.
And I know if you go on the subreddit, or if you even just check out a couple other MMA blogs, there's a lot of people campaigning. Curtis Blades, Francis Ngannou, #1 contender fight. That is going to, and I love Curtis Blades.
I love Curtis Blades.
I believe he's a future champion too. Don't get me wrong. He is a great fighter. But Francis Ngannou will put that guy in the hospital.
He's already put him
Francis
already beat the shit out of him. It's happened. It's happened twice before.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But people are campaigning for the rematch. They want to see it.
Now, Francis Ngannou is human. We know that from Stipe.
He was different. Yep, and I was just about to dive into that. People want to point out to me that, hey, Roland, yeah, you got Francis, you lost Stipe already. That was Francis Ngannou, what I believe was his, 5th UFC fight? Maybe
was it?
It was up there.
It was an early fight. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have that many fights under his belt at that time, and then people, you know, they like to dangle that over his name. Oh, he lost to the world champion already. But I mean, God, let's not kid ourselves here. We're talking about one of the baddest men on the planet. He has star power. People love the guy.
It was his 7th fight in the UFC, which is
I just pulled it up myself. In his 7th fight,
insane.
But let me tell you, George. Just in case you don't know too much about this man's track record, he came into the UFC fights. I don't even think the guy was ranked at the time, but he fought him, knocked him out. Curtis Blades, he fought him for the first time. TKO stoppage. The doctor said, "Get him out of there." Beat another guy up.
That's when it's bad. That's when the doctor says, "We gotta go."
Bojan beat him up. Anthony Hamilton. I think submission. Wow.
Wait, hold on. What submission?
Andre Arlovski knocked him. Yeah, he won by submission. You believe it?
Andre Arlovski is no slouch. Andre Arlovski.
He got beat the mess up. It didn't get out of the first round. And then then everyone was like, oh, he fought Alistair Overeem, an equally intimidating looking guy. Alistair Overeem went in there, got his butt whooped. And then he lost.
His soul left his body.
Then he lost to Stipe. And then he lost to Derek Lewis.
That was a boring fight. In my opinion, is one of the worst fights I've ever seen.
And that's because you expect two guys like that to go in there and at least somebody got to get knocked out.
They're knockout artists.
I don't care who it is.
They're knockout artists.
And then he rebounds, beat Curtis Blades for the second time, which is why all you people are campaigning for Curtis Blades versus Francis Ngannou for the third time.
There's no trilogy. Hold on.
If Max Holloway can't get Alex one more time, Curtis Blades, let's not get Francis one other time.
It's not a trilogy. In my mind, right now, Max Holloway and Volkanovski are 1-1.
And then we got old Kane's back. Kane's back in the heavyweight division. Oh my God, he's going to stay in the heavyweight. What happened? He gets laid out.
Well,
in 26 seconds. He gets laid
but you also have to think he messed up his knee in that fight too.
I don't care.
What do you mean you don't care?
Then he gets in there with JDS, who he has his highs, he has his lows. He doesn't knock him out, but TKO essentially knocks him out. And then in his most latest fight at 249, won by KO.
Who did he fight at 249?
Guys, I hate to cut it off. It was so hot. We're up against the clock. We're going to continue more UFC talk. Matt, thank you so much for joining. As always, Off the Bench presented by Negotiate with Style Diplomacy Clothing. Follow them on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to Off the Bench. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Subscribe and follow. Thank you guys. We'll see you later.